Welcome to Real Flix Reviews. We're like a book club for people who hate reading. This week was Ryan's pick, so James picked the movie Blow, made in 2001. We're also doing Season 1, Episode 1 of Homeland, and this week we have Jonathan Charney, James Stevens, and Ryan Preston. So here is the description of Blow, and as always, it's another perfect description. The story of George Jung, the man who established the American cocaine market in the 70s.
In the United States.
Jung?
Jung? I don't know how to pronounce it. So I'm sticking to it. I figured if I can't pronounce it, I'm just going to butcher it.
All right, George, when you get out of prison for the 5th time, you can complain to John. Because actually, for those of you that don't know, George actually got arrested. What is today? The 12th. 6 days ago, you got arrested in Sacramento, California, for violating your probation. Good for you, bud.
Our condolences. I
Really?
got it. So
Really? God.
so I got to say through the whole movie. Well, how do I say this? For one, this movie is very slow.
Did your wife watch it with you?
Yes.
Does she hate me again?
No,
wow.
she liked the movie before.
Wow, she likes my pick for Ryan, but hates mine for me.
Yes, it's because Ryan really picked it.
Well, yeah, I co-signed it. Come on now.
Yeah, you just approved it, put a little stamp on it.
Part of this movie feels as long as it is. There's definitely some sections of this movie that just drag on to me.
Okay.
And one of the funniest part about this whole movie to me is the way Johnny Depp dresses. He reminds me of a gay guy from the 70s the whole time.
Well, he probably was with that one guy. I forget his name. Derek for real.
Oh, you mean
Yeah.
Paul Rubens?
Yes.
Good old Pee Wee Herman.
Thank you. I was gonna say for people that don't know, that is Pee Wee Herman.
I was actually,
It is.
I was really
Worth watching this movie just for that little fact.
Yeah.
I was really impressed with him
Oh, he
on
did a
this
great
movie.
job.
Because the other
Well, he's
movie,
a great actor. You know what I
He's a
mean?
great
He
gay
started
guy.
out in improv, way back in the day. I think he was a Groundlings guy.
the last,
But damn, he's funny.
because the other movie I remember him in was Mystery Men, and that movie was awful.
Yeah.
And so I was actually really happy to see a movie that he was in that wasn't Pee Wee Herman, wasn't kind of this standard weird wacky character. I was really impressed by him, and that's something I never thought I would ever say.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, Pee Wee Herman is a character. You know what I mean? If you kind of remember that, the dude is genius for doing what he does.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think his problem is I think he got typecasted way too much. Because for me, he's always Pee Wee Herman, so I actually have to try really hard when I see him in something to expect him.
This one, I'll agree with you on. It was very easy to forget that he was Pee Wee Herman because he loses himself in this character.
Yeah, and
Well, and he also loses himself in Pee Wee Herman. I mean, it's such a transformation,
Well, I give this movie a 3 out of 5, and I think one of the reasons why he loses himself in the character is you don't really see many interviews of him being him. You never see that, or at least not for a while. So I think that's one of the things, the benefit of him for Pee Wee Herman in this is you don't really know him that much. Like you do George Clooney, Matt Damon, all these people. They do a ton of interviews, so you kind of get their personality.
Yeah. I just had to look this up because I wanted to see. He was only he only had Pee Wee's Playhouse, which is also when he released this movie. It's the same time span. He was only on for 4 years.
Really?
45 episodes.
Oh, wow.
That's an impressive thing to think that's been seared into our brains.
Oh,
that Paul Rubens is Pee Wee Herman. So I gotta say, for something that was only on for 4 years, that's actually really impressive.
Yeah.
And one other thing. Roy fucking Liotta. I love when his movies when when it's a good movie, it's amazing. But I think he's a guy that definitely needs a good script in order to be amazing.
You didn't like Bobcat Goldthwait?
I forgot about him actually. But no, he was in was it a Dungeon Siege or one of he was in he was in a movie with Jason Statham, and it was one of these excuse me, the cheesy dungeon.
Yeah, it was like a
Dungeon and Dragons.
release.
Yeah,
It was like a really quick straight to DVD.
and it was a really bad movie. His acting was horrible, but in this movie, besides the fact he's not a gangster, a bad guy, he did an amazing job.
Yeah, he did. For this one, this one, maybe it's because of some of my history, but I enjoy this one. Not only because it's a biopic of somebody, but it's a biopic of history, of what was going on at the time that was underground. And I've seen a lot of stuff about the Medellin cartel and not Castro, but Escobar, Pablo Escobar. And there's a lot of stuff in here that is interesting, and you can have kind of fun with it and joke about it a little bit, even though it's a very serious thing. Especially, I think the scene where you really get to understand how serious, George's delve into this is when he meets Pablo Escobar and he's standing there and Pablo shakes this guy's hand, turns around, one of his goonies walks up and puts it right in the guy's head. I mean, that one is it's like a sobering thing of how hardcore he's getting into this.
I'd also add the other scene, the other part of that I always thought was amazing was how Johnny Depp pretty much said, "It's my partner or nothing," and you're saying it to a guy that could make him disappear, and nobody would have never said anything.
But the thing that, if you know much about Pablo Escobar, he actually likes people with balls, and that's what Johnny Depp, when he's walking along, he said, "You want somebody with balls?" And he's like, "Yeah, balls,
Pablo
balls
Escobar
too."
Definitely liked his balls.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta, yeah.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, you're welcome, dude. Anyways, but
I figured I would help you out.
For me, this one's an easy. I'm going 4.5, and I'm almost on the verge of a 5 because.
Wow.
Because I like biopics like this, that, they take their liberties, of course, but there's so much truth in it that it's almost unbelievable. But yeah, this guy, George, really was rolling in money like that.
So what do you so Ryan?
Yeah, go ahead and toss it right.
Oh man, I'm kind of with James on this one. 4.5. It does drag in a couple of parts, a couple of times with his family and things like that. But you are so wrapped up in this story. The narration was dope.
Yeah.
All the characters landed so hard. You know what I mean? It was really something else. What's her name? Was it Rachel Griffiths played his mom?
Yeah, she did a good job.
Oh man. And who didn't just completely lose their mind the first time they saw Penelope Cruz whip cocaine in the dude's face with the cops behind him?
Oh yeah.
I mean, I probably stood up and like whipped whatever I was eating at the wall, just like no way that happened. But and sort of the history in this kind of Forrest Gump sort of way, like, hey, you never really knew this guy was here amongst this crazy part in history.
Yeah.
The story is so good, and the parts that they changed was like little piddly bullshit, like his mom never turned him in, that kind of stuff.
It adds to the drama.
Yeah,
that's what they're really
it does, and that's the thing is they got the details that counted right. What counts to me is the numbers. When he's getting busted with 600 something pounds of weed coming over,
660.
It's like
660. I mean. The scale on which he operated was crazy sauce. So you're on this like anxiety ride with him the whole time, and they nailed it.
Well, the thing I wanted to bring in, because you guys are talking about it bogged down, I think the areas where it bogged down, it only did that necessary bogged down because it's trying to get you to understand the relationships that he's building with these different people. Like his friend, the fat friend, I forget his name.
Tuna,
thank you.
Ethan Suplee, man.
And then
everyone gets a young Ethan Suplee.
Yeah. Go look him up in American History X.
I will say the one thing that I disagree with Ryan is I don't think the family scenes when it's him and his parents bog it down. I do think it's some of, like what James said, the scenes that they're building, the relationships, or they have to show the kind of the drug use. It's those scenes to me I think are a tad bit long, but I never really took it the way James said, far as they did it to
Well,
build that up. It's like, then
I
to me
think
that's excusable a little bit.
I think the reason I was saying about the parent scenes, maybe not necessarily the parts that slowed it down, but the parts that the rest of it, the part that's kind of following what actually happened, it's one of those, oh man, you can't make this shit up kind of stories,
Yeah.
So when you get to the parents and that's all sort of just fabricated by writers, that's the
really?
part that feels like it was kind of written and feels like it's put in there to humanize him and stuff like that,
That was actually the parts I really liked, when it was him and his dad was basically, it's not what I wanted you to do, but well, I
He's
actually
just impressed,
Yeah, I really liked.
How would you not be?
I really
Yeah.
liked, the whole interaction with him and his dad. By the way, $68 million in 1970 was a ton of money.
That was like
It's on the money now.
I think it would be closer to 150 million now.
So that's what I was always surprised when he had that and he left it in one bank.
Yeah, I wouldn't. We were
It's
talking
like-
about that before the show. Put it in a
diversify.
Go and do it in a Swiss bank account. Really?
Or just, I mean, at what point do
high
you just
class.
bury hundreds of thousands of dollars?
And that's what I was saying too. Just bury it. But
Anybody that's been watching Narcos on Netflix, which is a great show, by the
It
way,
is.
follows Pablo Escobar. The problems that he started running into was being able to keep his money clean and dry, and the rats not eating it.
Yeah.
You got a real serious money problem when you have no place to put it physically.
Well, they were running out of that too in that little house they were at. He's like, "Oh,
Right.
put it in the back room," and he's like, "There's no room back here. What are we gonna do with it? I don't know." Just weigh the box. Don't count it. If it weighs 60 pounds, it's $3 million.
There's an interesting documentary that kind of explains this era a little bit, called Cocaine Cowboys. It talks more of what happened in Miami than anything, but
It gives you an idea
Yeah.
of how it was working. And oh god, Griselda Blanco. If you don't know who that is, go look her up.
So
yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah. But what I want to bring into this one is there were also in the midst of the Cocaine Cowboys, they brought in the guys that were doing it in boats. They were bringing it over in speedboats.
Cigarette boats.
Yeah, and they were out running the Coast Guard, and even those guys were making like $500,000 in a couple months. I think they said they did $500,000 in a month.
yeah.
Yeah, and this was real early
And that's
days,
their
when
profit.
they were still one step ahead of the cops, but getting on an airplane was like catching a bus.
Yeah.
Nobody was checking your bags like that, and his stewardess girlfriend, that actually happened. I mean, a lot of that stuff was a lot easier, before they started getting into submarines and tunnels and shit,
Yeah.
Yeah, I will. On this movie, I don't think there were anybody who I'd consider a throwaway cast, or somebody's like, I wish they didn't cast that. Even the guy that picked his Tuna, I thought did a great job. There's parts of this movie, for me, bugs me that how slow it is, but everybody in this movie is a perfect choice. There's nobody in this movie to me that was like, man, they should have picked somebody else. This person just does not fit. Besides Johnny Depp, I'm not a great
One of the
fan
things I wanted to
of,
throw
though,
in,
personally.
and I thought this was interesting, and I do like Franca Potent. I don't know. Barbara, the girl who played the stewardess that Ryan was bringing up.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting that George, once he found out that she was dying of cancer, went on the lam, but did not tell you what happened over that year and a half. He shut all that down and didn't even speak about it. So you go from that to a funeral, and then he continues the story. I thought it was interesting that she meant so much to him that he wasn't going to bring her into this.
I also thought
Besides
it was,
what he already did.
I also thought it was kind
I
of
think
funny.
that speaks a lot to how much she actually mattered to him.
Oh no, totally.
So
I also found it kind of interesting on a artistic standpoint and how they turned his relationship with Penelope Cruz just like the same relationship his dad had with his mom.
yeah,
The one thing he was afraid of turned into, and it screwed him at the end.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but oh man, it's Man, this movie worked on so many levels and really still holds up. Seriously, I'm going to bring up the narration again because I really don't typically like narration.
Yes,
you know?
I know.
Done really well.
I know how much you hate narration, Ryan.
Well, yeah, because it
loves
has
it
a
in Sin
tendency to tell me things that I already know or things that you could tell me with just having the story play out in front of you.
He doesn't even
But
read
Johnny
books
Depp,
because
the
of
way
it.
he does narration,
He hates to hear his inner
for
voice.
one, is something else. But to me, narration has to be like you're sitting there listening to your grandfather tell a story, and you have this look on your face, like, yeah, and then what happened? You know?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's I like personally when it comes to excuse me, Blade Runner. I love the narration of Blade Runner because I think it personalizes it. I even like it on Dune, but I understand why people don't. To me, I totally agree with Ryan. I think this enhances. It does what it personalizes the story.
See, I think for Ryan, though, I mean, I think he really fell in love with Johnny Depp's narration in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. So something like Blow,
yeah.
I mean, it's just an easy transition for him.
Oh, totally. And like I said, I can kind of just listen to him tell me a story, you know?
You wanted to whisper sweet nothings in your ear? Was that what I just
Oh,
said?
absolutely. Yeah, hell yeah.
All right.
Yeah, South of France sitting there sipping on crazy expensive wine. Yeah.
So
Rum.
So I'm
Rum, damn it.
I'm still gonna give this a 3 out of 5. To me personally, this movie doesn't have a lot of great rewatchability. It's somewhat entertaining. It drags a little bit, but overall, it's a good movie. I think it's worth seeing. Especially, it's fairly realistic from what I know on that era, especially when it comes to smuggling and all that.
You know what? I actually think I'm going to change my rating here. And it's based off of John giving it a 3. And it kind of proves my point. This movie's a 5 out of 5 based off that. Is because you can take this movie and show it to somebody like John, and he's able to enjoy it. So you could take this movie and actually be like, oh, you haven't seen Blow? Well, why don't we sit down and let me educate you on a little bit of history that wasn't in books?
I got to say though, Johnny Depp's hair drove me nuts.
Wait, you don't like the Brad Pitt look?
He looked like Pat from Mad TV.
No, he was from Legends of the Fall in this one. He just kind of swept out of there into this movie.
See, and it's comments like I didn't like Johnny Depp's hair drove me crazy that really sells me on the 5 now. Because you're right, James. You could show this to somebody like John.
Yeah.
And have him like it.
Yeah.
At least enough to give it a 3, which is saying so much.
So
yeah, I mean,
we're gonna switch to Homeland Season 1, Episode 1, and since I'm pretty sure Ryan has seen this, we're gonna let him.
I think he's on Season 4 or 5.
We're gonna let Ryan start for the first time and say, I don't know, 100 episodes.
Yeah, for whatever reason, no matter who picks the show, James is always right there.
Well, because I know you haven't watched it. That's why.
Well, I watch it if I choose it.
Oh, I'm sorry. He's on Season 6.
Yeah, no, I'm caught up on this one, and I'm not going to sit there and tell you the entire series is the most perfect thing ever. But the first season, I mean, particularly this first episode, it lays a premise out that is so kind of unique to the time. You know, like this one is going to be sort of a time capsule. Yeah. 15, 20 years from now, but kind of captured the zeitgeist, quite a bit in its subject matter. But you don't really see spy stories like this. The really earnest, like, look, this is about assets and information and intelligence, counterintelligence. That's kind of what your legitimate spy work typically is. It's very few operatives, you know what I mean, and James Bond types, and if any at all, Well, so seeing kind of the nuts and bolts, I've always been a big fan of nuts and bolts spy stuff or military stuff.
It's interesting. There was on the History Channel years ago, they were talking about James Bond era type of spies, and all the people who were legit spies said no. If there was anybody like James Bond, he'd be made walking through the door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This TV show, it was started in 2011. So Ryan's totally right. I mean, that's far away enough from the Second Gulf War for the United States and all that to actually keep in people's memories but not be insulting.
Yeah.
It was actually really well done. I was quite impressed. I can't.
He likes seeing Captain Winners.
Honestly, I have a hard time seeing him as anything else. I really do.
Well, this show actually is one that I think he did a fantastic job in developing his character enough later on as the seasons go on, because he was in multiple seasons, to get you to kind of forget that he was Captain Winners. It does take quite a few episodes to get there, but you do get there eventually.
He's a hell of an actor, though.
I started watching this before Band of Brothers too, which is funny.
Oh wow!
Because you saw him as Brody first.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm watching, Band of Brothers, like, no,
damn it, Brody.
Yeah, well, see, and I don't want to get into that for people who may continue to watch this show.
Yeah.
But for the performances in this show, Claire Danes playing best character of her career, Mandy Patinkin just putting on a master class. I would rather watch nobody else but Mandy Patinkin in this show for an hour episode.
Yeah, honestly, this from watching the first episode, it really does have the feel of a movie, and that's because this is HBO, Showtime. Showtime. I think that's one of the reasons, because this is the first time I remember watching a TV show produced by one of the pay-per-view style channels, and you can see
Banshee, and that's on Cinemax.
Well, man, but was that before this?
Yeah. Are you talking about?
At the time, I remember.
At the time. No, Banshee came out after this.
Because at the time I remember watching it. It was one of the first ones I was seeing, hey, this is done like a movie. Because by the style, the writing, the cinematography, there was nothing about this movie that looked like it could have come from an Alphabet channel. So that was one of the things I remember originally watching this episode and going, I'm really impressed.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and also just intrigued. You know what I mean? Like, and what's kind of interesting about this, tell me if you feel the same way, as this is obviously strictly an American, point of view, but it was subject matter that we all kind of had a stake in to a certain extent. You know what I mean? Not necessarily in the let's fearmonger and be afraid of Muslims and things like that, but at the same time, like, no, this some things have happened, and there may or may not be a plot for some crazy shit to happen again. It's
that was
you're definitely rooting for one side pretty hardcore.
And this was, and a lot of that, even 2011 was still in the news, how there might have been some sort of terror organization, and this was totally present in the society of 2011. So I'm still really impressed. I mean, I never really continued with it. I think I watched a couple of episodes afterwards and just never continued it. So I definitely give it the TV show a must watch. And because it's getting close to Christmas, we decided to change it up. We're going to do the movie
Krampus.
What he said, Krampus.
And we are actually going to do the real Krampus, and not the one, where I'm trying to figure out where the one is. The fake one. The name of the fake one. God dang it. Your stupid internet, John. Stop torrenting things.
Wait, what? What's a torrent?
So we're doing the one that was made in 2015.
2015?
I'm trying to remember the stupid name of the knockoff one. There is a knockoff one that's a B flick that was straight to DVD.
Make sure not to pick one with a subtitle. If it says Krampus : something, don't watch that.
Okay, yes, thank you. Because I was going to say there are some subtitles in this one because the grandma does speak German in the beginning. So there are subtitles. Don't freak out. But if you're not laughing in the first 2 minutes of it, you're on the wrong one.
Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, I gave Blow 2001 a 3 out of 5. James gave it a 5. Ryan gave it a 5. Next week doing Krampus, and our TV series will be announced later in the week.
Okay.
Unless you guys have one.
I could pull one up.
Okay.
Just give me one moment. We're going to do Season 1, Episode 1 of Deutschland 83.
What he said. So, ladies and gentlemen, as always, thank you for watching.
Goodbye.
Thank you.